90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is Ken Landau with Law You Should Know. Today we're going to talk about improving pedestrian and bicyclist safety. It's a big problem in New York City, on Long Island, and throughout the state and throughout the country. Our special guest is Cynthia Brown. She's the executive director of the New York Coalition for Transportation Safety, and they're trying to teach best practices to pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists so they're not a hazard to each other. Cynthia, welcome to Law You Should Know.
Thank you. Just to give you a little bit more information about the organization, we have actually been around since 1982, and we were formed originally by the Automobile Association of the United States and also by the Medical Association of New York State, because so many people were dying in car crashes who were unrestrained, and they believed that people being buckled in would save their life. So in 1988, we became fully incorporated as a 501c3. And today, most of our funding, if not all of it, comes from New York State DMV through a grant that is provided by the federal government and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So through these grants, we're able to try to do outreach to populations that we've identified through data that's been collected from motor vehicle crash reports. And that's how we pinpoint the areas where we go to work.
And of course, in New York and Long Island, we want to keep pedestrians safe. We want to keep bicyclists safe, yes, and people on all those other vehicles, from hurting each other or themselves or pedestrians.
Right. And keeping them safe is really a challenge. COVID changed a great deal of, first of all, bicyclists and pedestrians walked and rode their bikes much more during COVID than they had in the past. And bicycling in particular has remained at a great increase due to the number of people who previously rode bikes. In fact, it was even hard to buy a bike during COVID because so many people were using them. Unfortunately, our infrastructure has not kept up with the number of people who want to ride bicycles on our roads.
And the way we do things, the way we avoid conflicts at an intersection or on the roads has not met up with the increased challenges of everyone sharing the road or being able to cross an intersection. So it's really up to the pedestrian or the bicyclist to act defensively, and of course drivers too, to prevent coming close to someone on a motorized bike, someone on a car who's making deliveries, where the people may not see them or may not want to slow down.
Not even a month ago, we were actually at Good Samaritan Hospital in Suffolk County because it was just prior to Labor Day weekend, and the police departments in New York State also get extra funding to do extra enforcement on holiday weekends like that. And so we were at the hospital because they're a level 1 trauma center, and they see the victims of these car crashes. And unfortunately, while we were there at the conference, 3 people, 2 who were brought to that hospital and 1 to another, were 3 young people who were jogging in the morning who were struck. And it was a young woman and her brothers, and she was killed. And the other 2, her brothers, fortunately survived. But just, it's a simple thing. She was jogging on a road. They were jogging on a road that had no sidewalk. And they were going, if you walk or jog or run on, not bicycle, but, anything where you're on your feet, and you are on a road that doesn't have a sidewalk on it, you should be running, walking, whatever, facing traffic, so that you see any vehicle that's coming towards you. And I believe that they were, but supposedly it was one of those dangerous roads without a sidewalk and that wasn't a straight out run. So it lended itself to being dangerous.
Is it good to wear bright clothing or reflective clothing or even
Yes,
flashing
this
lights,
was
so to
also
speak?
8:30
Yeah.
in the morning on a
Right.
bright sunny day, so they should not have required that, but nevertheless, it's always a good idea. I try to make myself remember on a day like today where it's dreary and you go out. All of us tend to, especially as the weather's changing, to wear dark colored clothes, and you're much better off if you wear something reflective. In many of our programs, one of the things that we do, especially if it's older people or children, is we give them reflective vests to wear so that they're better seen when they are out, because everybody's out, whether you're a driver or not, or a walker. Everybody is a walker or a pedestrian at some point in time. So you have to think about these things.
And so the jogger or the walker should be going against traffic,
Yes.
but a bicyclist or someone on any kind of motorized vehicle should be going with traffic.
Yes, bicycles are considered, for the purpose of New York State vehicle and traffic law, are considered the same as a motor vehicle. So they have to obey all the same rules that motor vehicles do, as far as driving with traffic, obeying traffic signals and stop signs. And a lot of people who really resent bicyclists because they're sort of afraid of them will tell you that bicyclists don't observe traffic signals, that they don't stop for stop signs, that they roll through them. And there's some legitimacy in that, because I guess the bicyclist feels that they look both ways and there's really no reason why they shouldn't go. But the reason they shouldn't go is because maybe they missed something and didn't see everything. I believe in Suffolk County, they passed what they call a 3-foot law, which means that the car must keep a 3-foot distance from the bicyclist. That does not exist in Nassau County. And like I said before, the infrastructure did not keep up with the number of people who actually bicycle or ride these other electrical e-mobility devices or gas scooters or the stand-up scooters like the kids ride. And there are no real laws that govern where they can ride.
But for this program, we can talk about best practices to try to prevent injuries and save lives.
Right.
So that's a good best practice, a 3-foot safety zone between the cars and the bicyclist, and really maybe between bicyclists and pedestrians, so that there's less of a danger of them crashing.
Right. And also one of the best things that you can do for bicyclists is protected bike lanes. There are very simple ways that you can do that. In some instances, you could they wouldn't necessarily be protected, but they would be clearly marked, is with paint. You can paint a bike lane and you can put the symbols that indicate it's a bicycle lane within the width of the lane. If it's 4 feet or 5 feet, they can use jersey barriers, concrete barriers in other places. There are many different cones and striping and different things that can be used, that the motorist understands that they're sharing the road with other users. And that's one of the best things. And if they belong to a bicycle club, or if they have any kind of organized rides at all, will understand that their bike needs to be equipped properly, that it has to have, if they're going to ride after dark, they actually have to have lights on it. Otherwise, at the point of purchase, the bike should come equipped with a white reflector, round reflector in the front, and a red one in the back. But again, if you're going to be out at all when the weather, is like on a day like today or getting darker, you should actually have a light on your bike. And there are the law says that children up to the age of 14, and in Nassau County, I believe it's up to the age of 18, need to wear a bicycle helmet. So there are many different styles and types of helmets, all of which are intended to protect your brain, really. But there are lots of those that now come with flashing lights on the back of them, or anything that you can put reflective strips on the helmet. You can get a very inexpensive bike helmet. When we do programs for children, we do bike rodeos. If the child does not have a helmet, we provide them with one.
And we'll ask about how people can arrange for a program like that. And also, in terms of best practices, it's good to have flashing lights or lights on the bicycle during the day so it's that much more visible. It's good for
Yes.
the bike rider to wear visible clothing, a bright colored clothing during the day so they're that much more visible. Because sometimes the driver's in a rush and they don't really see the bicycle, or maybe it's shade on the street.
Yeah, there's lots of reasons. Of every possible safety hint you can give people, the best one is to be seen. And the best way to be seen is to wear something, or have something on the bike or on your person that allows you to be seen. Even cars now, almost all new cars have daytime running lights. The lights just stay on. So if it works for a car, it certainly would work for a bicyclist or a person who is out, in the daytime. So you can't negate, being seen by the greatest harm or cause of injury to pedestrians is turning vehicles. Generally left-hand turning vehicles, also right-hand turning vehicles, especially on streets that allow vehicles to make a right-hand turn on a red signal. A person who is crossing at one of those locations, even if they're in a crosswalk and they have a traffic signal, it doesn't mean that the driver of the car will see them. So it's a good idea to try to make eye contact. And also, it's a very good idea to advocate for the counties, Nassau and Suffolk, installing the type of traffic signals that allow the pedestrian to start to cross the street before the motorist gets the traffic signal to move. They're called leading pedestrian intervals, and they really work great. And they can have additional timing put on them for the person. You'll see they're a white light of a pedestrian. It's in white lights. And it comes on before the light. If you look up at the traffic lights, you'll see that pedestrian signal came on before the light changed. So the light is still red for motor vehicles, but it's working for the pedestrian.
Right. It's giving the pedestrian a head start.
Right.
Otherwise, it's like a race to who gets into that intersection first.
Yes, you're right. Exactly. So that's extremely helpful when turning vehicles are the greatest cause of a pedestrian being struck. So this way, you have a chance to be out into the intersection and probably halfway across the street before the person in the car has the right to go. So that's a great, I don't want to say, it's an intervention, an invention, and it's extremely helpful. Timing signals at different places is very helpful. The pedestrian really does have to remember there are roads, and we've gone around and tried to observe some of them to see whether or not you always have to push that button to get the cross signal. And there are some locations where you don't, even though the button is there. But for most of them, if you don't, you will never get a walk signal. It just will not come up at all.
In New York City, it seems to happen
first.
automatically, but in Nassau County and perhaps Suffolk, you have to activate it. And then you still have to be careful, because if it's the same time as the green light, you got to make sure that car sees you and they're going to stop. So as you said before, communication is also your friend. I just want to remind our listeners, we're talking with Cynthia Brown. She's the executive director of the New York Coalition for Transportation Safety. And we're talking about pedestrian and bicyclist safety on Law You Should Know here on 90.3 WHPC. If you missed any portion of this program or you want to tell someone else about it, the podcast is available at nccradio.org. Again, there are a lot of laws that give pedestrians under circumstances or bicyclists the right of way, but they're going to be less helpful to you if you're killed or injured. And there's, people are not aware of who's going into the intersection, who's there first, and who, to prevent conflict. So as you said before, there's that 3-foot safety zone, letting the car know that you have the right of way and you're going to exercise it. Those are very important. And the drivers have to look for pedestrians and cyclists and make sure there are those communications as well.
Well, that's true. And actually, one of the other greatest dangers for bicyclists is where there are existing bike lanes. And what we tend to do, the other people who work with me, and before we do a presentation at a certain location, we actually go out and observe the location, and we take pictures of what the roadways look like around it. And we stay a little while and we observe the traffic, and we observe patterns of traffic and, where possible, pedestrian behavior. And in a lot of instances, there are semblances of bicycle lanes. There are some real bike lanes, and then there are, I guess, lanes along the side of the road that are
like a shoulder or something.
Yes,
yeah.
The shoulder. But in many instances where there are honest to God bike lanes, cars still park in those lanes, which makes it very hard for somebody who's bicycling in that lane because it forces you out into, regular traffic. But the other real danger for a bicyclist, if there is a lane that a car is parked in, or if there is no lane and they have to ride with traffic, is people who open their car doors into the bicyclist. In other words, they don't look before they exit their car, and they're unaware that there's somebody coming, and they open the car door into the bicyclist. And this is really one of the greatest fears that a lot of people I know who cycle regularly really worry about. And it can lend itself to real injury to somebody who's riding.
Even though the bikers may have the right of way, it's good to look, see if a car just pulled over or someone could be about to get out. And again, that zone of safety, if you're staying 3 feet or more away from that car,
right,
you may prevent that problem. But of course, the driver, as you said, has to look, use their rearview mirror to make sure there's no traffic or bicyclist that's about to come in contact with them if they open the door.
Well, there's a lot of laws on the books that are intended to keep pedestrians safe. Most of them are common sense. Like if you're backing out of your driveway, you don't have, and a person is crossing your driveway, that person actually has the right of way. But a lot of times the person who's backing up doesn't see the person behind you, which was the main initiative for putting backup cameras into cars, is because the person backing up doesn't see the pedestrian behind them. This is a tremendous problem in parking lots. People backing out of parking spaces do not see somebody walking, but pedestrians themselves have a responsibility to pay attention if a vehicle is pulling out, because they have to understand that the person driving doesn't want to hit them. They don't even know they're there. So you really have to pay a lot of attention. That's the best thing you can do for yourself, is really stay alert when you're out walking, especially if you're in an area where there is originally a sidewalk, and then you come to, I had a phone call about this yesterday, a stretch of road where there is no sidewalk. And the person who called wanted to know who would be responsible for putting in a sidewalk there. And then we get into the age-old conflict of who owns the road and has to put the sidewalk in. And as you may know, there are lots of jurisdictions in Nassau and Suffolk County, and as to who owns what. And this is a particular problem for engineers who are really trying to do the right thing and change the roadway, because it's almost as if every time you go into a different zip code, you go into a different village. And each one has its own laws and own ability to be able to control certain roads within their jurisdiction. It isn't like New York City, where the city controls all the roads. That's not the case in Nassau, or Suffolk. So you have state, you have local, you have county, and that's one of the things that holds up some of the engineering changes that could be possibly made to help people stay safe.
And even you mentioned that a pedestrian in a shopping center, parking lot, or a mall may have the right of way. They don't want to die enforcing that right. It helps if they keep an eye out for cars moving, about to move, and just try to avoid an area where they could be in the path of a car that's backing up or going forward or making a turn, because drivers may be focusing on parking, rather than looking for pedestrians.
Well, and that holds true for walking between cars. I'm sure that it may have happened to you. It's probably happened to almost anybody who's listening to this. You're crossing to the other side of the street. You don't bother to look to see. You may look to see if there's a vehicle coming up and down the block, but you're not looking for somebody to be in the vehicle in between which you're crossing. And then, they start to cross and you're in the process of backing up. And that person doesn't, they simply did not look to see that there was a possibility that vehicle could be moving. There are just so many, truthfully, very simple things you could really do to keep yourself safe. And it's mostly that we're so just used to doing things, the way we always did them, that we don't think about it. And many of these safety things just require simple behavioral changes, that you just have to. It's how we would teach children, because we want children to stay safe. I wanted to give you some very brief statistics, because I know you were interested in children and the dangers to children from motor vehicles, and if they're bicyclists or whatever. The most current year's worth of data is 2022. And in Nassau, there were 81 fatalities, and in Suffolk, there were 162 in 2022.
And this includes pedestrians and people on bicycles?
Yes, it does. And of the 162 in Suffolk, 14 of them were motorcycle fatalities. 8 of them were bicyclists, and they were not the age groups that you would think of at all. Well, for motorcyclists, it's almost always male, and it's almost always 25 to 35 years of age. But it really is just, when you look at this data and you see how many people are actually dying from these things. The reason that we had done the press conference at Good Samaritan Hospital was because the month of August of this year was just a disaster. And between Nassau and Suffolk County, there were, by the end of the month, I believe, 30 people who died from vehicle crashes, and half being bicycles and pedestrians and the other half being people in motor vehicles. But that was awful. We are trying to encourage the police to do extra enforcement. The state police do enforcement on all of the parkways, but your local roadways should be, the traffic enforcement should be done by either the village police departments, of which in Nassau there are 18. I'm not sure how many there are in Suffolk. And your overriding county police department. And there are also sheriffs who do police enforcement, especially on the HOV lanes on the expressway.
Okay. And I just want to remind our audience, we're talking about improving pedestrian and bicyclist safety. Our guest is Cynthia Brown. She's the executive director of the New York Coalition for Transportation Safety. And you're listening to Law You Should Know on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. If you missed any part of this program or you'd like to tell someone else about it, just go to the podcast at nccradio.org. And also, as you mentioned, speed kills. If the cars are slowing down a little bit, it's less likely that a pedestrian, maybe they didn't see someone, or a bicyclist, it's less likely. They have ability to prevent an accident if they're taking it a little slower, being a little more careful on the turns, and the consequences won't be as devastating if they're going a little slower, especially with those maneuvers.
Well, you're absolutely right. And one of the things that was really just in yesterday's Newsday is there's an organization called it's an Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. And they do a lot of testing on vehicles and, anything to do with insurance for motor vehicles, that type of thing. I believe they're in Virginia. And they came out with a thing that said, with the increased speed and the increased size of a lot of the motor vehicles that people drive now, that they believe that is one of the reasons that we've seen an increased number of pedestrian and bicycle fatalities. Right. Because the size of the vehicle, let's say you're in a high-end SUV,
yes.
Right. So the difference in where that car would strike somebody is totally different than where a sedan would hit somebody. So the sedan tended to have a person incur injuries that were more likely to be from the waist down, whereas these larger vehicles hit upward, waist up, and that it raises the risk of a fatality.
Right. And there are also maybe more gadgets in a vehicle that are going to distract the driver. Cindy, I just wanted you to tell us the contact information for your organization if someone would like a speaker, would like more information on these very important issues.
Well, they can contact Walk Safe Long Island, which is we have it as a website, and or they can call me at 516-571-6808. If they're interested in a program, that's the number that they should call. They can, the website for Walk Safe Long Island is WALKSAFELI.org.
And what kind of information will someone find on the website?
They will find all our contact information. They will find, we do blogs on pedestrian and bicycle safety. We have a lot of information up there about the laws. We have upcoming programs. We have information if you want to contact us to do a program. Just so you know, we do bicycle rodeos for children 6 to 12, which is teaching them bicycle skills and giving them a little bit of information about what laws and, where they can ride safely and what kind of gear they should have. We do senior programs, many of which we call Walk with a Doc. And this is a program where we actually choose a route. A doctor will speak to them first and explain why it's a good idea to walk for your health, but not be run over by your walking. And then we take a route and we point out all the areas where there's a possibility of conflict, like where is it difficult to cross? Plan your route before you go. Know where you're going. If you're older, know if there's a place that you can rest or stop or be safe. And we tell children that also, that they should always carry contact information with them. They should not give their names out to strangers. They should not wear anything that indicates their name on it.
And parents should make sure their bicycles are equipped with the safety devices, maybe flashing lights, and of course the kids are wearing a helmet. And if people contact you for programs, you'll give out some of that safety equipment and perhaps even helmets.
Yes, we are. We're very happy to do pedestrian. And like I said, we really concentrate on peds and bikes. There's a lot of other things with traffic safety, but we do a lot of physical observations with high school kids, taking them out. We have a whole checklist that we have them run through so that they actually understand, almost sort of a pre-engineering class to see, why a road is designed the way it is, and if it's poorly designed, how they could fix it.
Okay, I wish we had some more time, but I would like to thank Cynthia Brown,
you're welcome.
Executive Director of the New York Coalition for Transportation Safety, for all the advice she's offered. And the website, again, is walksafeli.org, and the contact number to arrange for a program for students, for older people, for drivers, for community groups is 516-571-6808. If you missed any portion of the program, please go to the website, nccradio.org, and please join us at the same time next week for another program on Law You Should Know here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York.